And that's the idea that Great Keppel Island will become Woppa. Here's James Ashby. James and I appear, as I mentioned, I just want to not have this as any secret. It's not that he and I appear on Peter Cratlin's show on Sky on Friday nights. And I've had Pauline Hanson on the overnight show many times. And James and I talk occasionally about all sorts of things. So I class him as a friend. But he's also the candidate for the state seat of Keppel in Queensland. And he's on the line. How are you, mate?
I am very good, Luke. It's beautiful up here at the minute. Flat as a tack, and everyone's gone back to work, so no one's on the water.
Are you at your poon?
I am.
There you are. There you are. I knew it. Now, what's going on? Woppa. What is at stake here? Have we got a government that are hell-bent on changing the name? Is this being floated and they'll make the decision anyway? Is there someone called Great or Keppel who wronged Australians in years past? What's going on?
Well, there was an admiral on board the First Fleet when James Cook came over, and when they travelled past this neck of the woods, old Admirable, I keep saying Admirable.
You do?
Admiral, I think he was an admirable bloke, but
Good.
He had a last name, Keppel, and so hence why this area was recognised as the Keppels, and the main island, Great Keppel Island, was named after him. Well, that happened, as we know, 1788, and all of a sudden, 2024 hits us, and the Labor Party here in Queensland think that it's more appropriate to call it Woppa.
Now, Woppa, I assume, it has to do with the Woppa Borough people. Is that right? They're the traditional owners?
Correct. There were between 60 and 80 Woppa Borough people on the island when it was first discovered. And in 1901, they were taken off the island. There was only a few of them left. They weren't very healthy. They weren't very well. And it was decided back then that they'd have a better lifestyle if they were on the mainland.
Right.
So the island was actually used as a grazing station for sheep. And then after World War II, it became more known for its tourism. So they started establishing tourism over there in the way of a resort. That resort closed down in 2009 from memory. And as a result, mate, it's, that island's sort of been on a backward slope for a little while now. We had a cyclone up here in 2013. State government, they own the leases here, so effectively they're the landowner or landholder, and they've done nothing really to rectify all the damage to the island.
Jeez.
The resorts that are left there now are leasehold, so they don't actually have any tenure over their land, and they haven't been able to put the money into the island because you can't borrow money as a leaseholder against the establishment.
Yeah.
And so there's a real need for a huge injection of money to go into that island. There is a master plan, a draft, which the state government put together. It just seems funny that since July, originally it was the Great Keppel Island master plan. In December, when all the turmoil of a cyclone up this neck of the woods and Labor's leadership spills happened, they released this, and you wouldn't believe it, it's now called Woppa on their master plan, and in brackets, in very small writing underneath it, it says Great Keppel Island.
Yeah.
Very similar to what they did with Fraser Island.
Yeah. Why was Fraser Island changed? I've had a number of listeners now express to me in the text that it's, it's getting a bit ridiculous. I think they call it Gari, do they now, or Gary?
Yeah, it's something like that. It starts with a K, it's got an apostrophe, and then G-A-R-I. So I don't know how to pronounce it properly. And like Keppel, everybody knows Fraser Island as Fraser Island, nothing else. When I hit the streets yesterday and spoke to a whole lot of locals, they then started saying, is this for real? Is this part of a Hungry Jack's, G up?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. We're going to be the laughing stock of the Great Barrier Reef if we go calling this island Woppa.
Yeah. It is odd, I have to say. It is odd. And you wouldn't put it past a government, certainly a progressive government of the left, to try and make this happen for some, grand advantage like dealing with cultural sensitivities of the like, whilst ignoring all the real challenges people have on a day-to-day basis, isn't it?
Look, I'm open to the idea of the fact that we should acknowledge our history and heritage, right? I have no problem with that.
Yeah, of course.
And there's a lot of people that acknowledge the fact that there was a Woppa tribe on the island when white man came. A very small number. Today, there's only 300 people that identify as ancestral descendants of that Woppa mob. So here we are. We're actually making these significant changes to iconic historic islands like Great Keppel. Everyone knows it as Great Keppel.
Yes.
For the sake of a minority.
Yeah.
I've never quite understood that. Why are we bending over backwards to appease a minority when we should actually be appeasing the majority? The tourist operators here, they're saying, well, what do we do? Have we got to rename our businesses off the back of this as well?
Yeah.
Will people know where Woppa is? No, as I said in a press release, I said, don't you know Woppa's, 500 kilometres as the crow flies from Minjan, which is another Aboriginal name they want to rename Brisbane.
Yes. Hey, are you going to win this seat?
I hope so, Luke. The thing is, we've had a very weak Labor candidate here. We've got massive problems in this area. As you know, Labor, if you buck the system or buck the trend and speak out against what the majority in your party say, you just don't get pre-selected
That's
next year. And so this young girl who represents the area doesn't really represent it at all. We've been left high and dry for the last 2 decades. Issues like Great Keppel Island, but also too, we've got a real shortfall in funding for this region of central Queensland, or Keppel where I am, when it comes to hospitals. They've stripped out the railway. There's been a whole raft of issues that have not been addressed over the last couple of decades, and in particular the last 10 years that she's held the seat.
You could end up being the member for Woppa.
No thanks. I'd like Keppel.
Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, mate, for jumping on board.
Thanks, mate.
Good on you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.